Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. So I'm in my car about 2 hours ago and inspiration hit me. How about doing a video on my favorite rock supergroups? So obviously you know what we're talking about. Supergroups are bands that were formed by members of other bands. You know, really famous or legendary musicians who got together and formed a whole new band, supergroups. There's a ton of them out there in the history of rock and roll. But as history has shown, it is not an easy thing to pull off. Most of these bands did not last very long. A lot of them didn't even have great success. And it just goes to show that magic in a band is comprised of a lot more than just having an amazing bunch of musicians together. There's that chemistry, that certain magic. And basically sports teams need it, corporations need it. You need more than just great talent you need a great team. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting. Here are about 15 or so of my favorite supergroups. Kind of ranked, but it's not really a ranking. But I'll start with some of the ones the least successful for me. And as always, how do I rank things? It's based on play. There's my stereo system that you can't see right now. It's how much I play this stuff over the last 50 years. Let's say at the bottom, number 15, is this band, Black Country Communion. Why are they at the bottom? Not because they're not really great. I don't know. They're a new band for me. I have 3 of their albums. This is their debut with a deluxe edition. And then this is their second one, I guess, Black Country Communion 2. And this is one called Afterglow. I'm not that familiar with them. I haven't really had a chance to listen to them. I have a backlog of about 300 albums, and these 3 are in there. They are not officially yet in the Alan Rosenberg Show. I haven't listened to them 5 times. So that's why they're at the bottom. But they're a band that I'm really looking forward to listening to. Glenn Hughes, of course, Deep Purple fame, big fan. And Joan Bonamassa, oh my God, one of the all-time great modern-day guitarists. And Jason Bonham, amazing drummer, of course, and Derek Sherinian, keyboard player, legendary, who's played with so many people. They get great reviews. I'm looking forward to getting into them. So they're, let's say, like around number 15 for me. Who else would be near the bottom? Well, this one, I guess. Let's call these guys at number 14. You might remember them. Firefall. Remember Firefall? So Firefall was a band led by Rick Roberts, who I really like. Here's a Greatest Hits album. Here's their debut album. Their debut album had a pretty big hit with You Are the Woman That I Always... You remember that one. Really popular track. Mexico, great track as well. It Doesn't Matter, great. Cinderella. It's a really strong record. And then Strange Way, which is a fantastic song as well. A good band. They were comprised, like I said, Rick Roberts, who I was a big fan of because he kept the Flying Burrito Brothers going and did a really good job. There's a Flying Burrito Brothers album, the first one that he led the band, and it's tremendous. Mark Andes was from, I'm doing this from memory, Spirit. Michael Clark was a drummer from the Byrds. So definitely, a bit of a supergroup, and they had, some decent success, and they're a good band, not a great band, but definitely a fine band. This was an interesting one. Let's go to vinyl. Captain Beyond. So Captain Beyond, this was a really cool vinyl cover. Love the artwork on this. Really cool because they were like a spacey progressive band, and they're on Capricorn Records. Capricorn Records, of course, the home of Southern rock, and here they are with Captain Beyond. This was their second album, Sufficiently Breathless. So why are they in there? Well, that was, who the hell was in this band? Lee Dorman, Rod Evans, who was the singer in Deep Purple before he got the boot for Ian Gillan. So this was a combination of basically Deep Purple and Iron Butterfly. This was their third record, Dawn Explosion, on vinyl as well. This had a little bit of a different lineup. They're a good band. They're interesting. Psychedelic kind of, progressive on Capricorn Records. Pretty cool. Captain Beyond. So that's around like number 14 or so. Again, the ranking's not really important. Who else is there? You remember UK? This was a cool band. Highly progressive. This band was supposed to be like a huge hit. I mean, look at the lineup. You had Bill Bruford on drums and John Wetton. They were the backbone drummer and bass of King Crimson. So here they are in UK. They bring along Alan Holdsworth, an amazing guitarist, and Eddie Jobson. I mean, what a pedigree of musicians. This was their first album, and it's great. It's a really strong progressive rock album if you like progressive rock. In the Dead of Night, it got some play, but it's a really strong record. It's a good one. They had a really good live record, too, called Night After Night Live, but their lineup didn't last very long. They had a splitting of ways. I think they fired Alan Holdsworth, and then because of that, Bill Bruford left, because I guess they were buddies. They brought in not Dale Bozio, Terry Bozio on drums, another amazing player. It became a trio. Really good records from a really good progressive rock band. Didn't last too long. UK, again, you got Yes, Crimson, Roxy Music, Uriah Heep, John Wetton was in there. That's quite a pedigree right there, but they didn't really last too long. Here's one interesting progressive rock band. There's a lot of progressive rock stuff that you tend to see with supergroups. Band called Transatlantic. They're still going strong. So what you got here is you got a guy from Morse from Spock's Beard, Portnoy from Dream Theater, and Pete Travaris from Marillion, and what's that other guy's name? Stoltz from the Kings. I can't think of the goddamn name. But they're really, the Flower Kings. Highly progressive, really long tracks, 20-minute tracks, 40-minute track on this album. And they're really good. I definitely dig Transatlantic. Got to be in the mood. Really extended progressive. But these are guys that are just monster musicians and, really good stuff. Transatlantic, they're still going, what else do we got here? We'll go with this one. Here's the Highwayman. I mean, does it get much bigger in like country rock than this? I mean, what a mixture. You got Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, and Chris Christopherson make up the Highwayman. This is what I have from them. This is the Essential Highwayman. It's 2 CDs. Big fan, obviously, of all 4 of them. And, when I'm in the mood, this is great stuff. The Highwayman. The only one supergroup there from country that I think I have, pretty much. Let's keep going. So this was an interesting one. Obviously Jimmy Page, one of the all-time legends, obviously Led Zeppelin. Not only is he a great guitarist, but he's a great songwriter. And, of course, he's the musical mastermind of Led Zeppelin, producing them, and the Zeppelin albums always sound so amazing. But yet, when Zeppelin folded, Robert Plant, who was really, obviously, a great frontman and a great singer, and wrote a lot of the lyrics, if not all the lyrics, but Robert Plant went on to this amazing solo career. Unbelievable solo career. So great, he doesn't even want to look back on Led Zeppelin. In most cases, turning down hundreds of millions of dollars to reform. Jimmy Page, since the end of Led Zeppelin, really hasn't been able to get a good follow-up. He's tried. I guess one of the big ones was The Firm. Now, The Firm, I thought was going to be a great thing because you got Paul Rodgers, who I think is one of the greatest, vocalists of all time in Bad Company and Free. I mean, unbelievable. And then you got him with Jimmy Page. Of course, they were both on Swan Song, Led Zeppelin's label, when Bad Company started out. And you got, great drummer, was Chris Slade, right, from AC/DC. This is just a great, should have been an amazing band. They released 2 albums. This was the first one, The Firm. Did pretty well. I was a big fan of Radioactive when that came out. I thought that was great. And I thought Satisfaction Guaranteed was a really good track. But, is it a classic album? By no means. Their second album, Mean Business, did even less business, And it's just okay. Live in Peace was good. All the King's Horses was good. But none of these are like great, great albums. And that was the end of The Firm. So that's really about that. And just to pursue a little bit more with Jimmy Page, is this a supergroup as a one-off? Coverdale Page, with David Coverdale, who, obviously Whitesnake's leader. And some people think that he's kind of a Plant ripoff. I don't. But, again, you would think with David Coverdale and Jimmy Page, it's a good album, but it ain't a great album for sure. And even when he finally convinced Robert Plant to get back together and they did the Page and Plant album, Walking into Clarksdale, man, it was a very underwhelming album. There's some really good songs on there, but the production of it, it's just kind of flat, in my opinion. And then when they toured that, and here's some bootlegs, what'd they do? They went out basically as Led Zeppelin without John Paul Jones. Here's set lists from the Page and Plant tour, and it's just about all Led Zeppelin stuff. It's fine. They did, good arena-sized business, but it was the only time really that you see Robert Plant stepping back, kind of unlike him. So Jimmy Page and Paul Rodgers in the Firm, just okay. What else is there? Let's talk Humble Pie. Now, I'm a big fan of Humble Pie. Humble Pie, when you really delve into their discography, and I know that A&M just put out like a really big box set, which is kind of cool, but it's hit and miss. Their first couple of albums were very acoustic-like. They're kind of hit and miss. Their legacy, at least to me, is their live album, because Rockin' the Fillmore, Performance Rockin' the Fillmore with Peter Frampton on it is one of the all-time greatest live records, especially Side 1, with 4-Day Creep, I'm Ready, Stockholm Fever, and Side 4 with Hallelujah, I Love You So, and I Don't Need a Doctor is unbelievable. And then Sides 2 and 3 are a song-length song each, where you got a lot of jamming, but they're really great. Smokin's a really good album. And then, of course, Peter Frampton left, and they managed, here's Rock On. They did okay without Peter Frampton for a while. Those are the two best albums, I think. Here's a live one without Peter Frampton, and this is a cooking live album as well from the King Biscuit Flour Hour. So, they could still bring it on. If you really want to get into Humble Pie, I would tell you to get like a compilation like this. Hot and Nasty, the anthology, great cover. And it cherry picks, songs from all the different albums. And that's pretty much what you want to get. Their latter-day albums are not very good. So Humble Pie, a legendary band. What was that? Well, Peter Frampton left the Herd, and Steve Marriott, of course, and he left the Small Faces. And Greg Ridley was in that band, Humble Pie, originally, and he was from Spooky Tooth. So there's the supergroup of that, what made up Humble Pie. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to include this, the Traveling Wilburys. Their debut album is one of the all-time great classic rock albums. It's fantastic, and it's a great story. Here you have the biggest superstars in the world. You got George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Roy Orbison. Who am I forgetting? Anybody? Jeff Lynne. So they get together because they want to do a B-side for George Harrison's single, and they do Handle with Care. And then they just decided to keep going. And that first Traveling Wilburys album really, really is a classic. This is a box set that is comprised of both of their albums. Their second album, which was called Volume 3, which was actually their second album, was just okay. It was not nearly as good as the original album. And then it's got a DVD with the history. This is a great compilation. You got to include them. I think maybe they would have kept going. Obviously, George Harrison passing away, and Roy Orbison passed away. But man, the Traveling Wilburys, that's a supergroup that really worked because they did it for the right reasons, out of the love of the music, and it worked really, really good. Let's talk about Eric Clapton, shall we? So now, a lot of people are going to say the first supergroup ever is Cream. That's pretty much historic. I don't really buy that. Listen, Cream's one of the all-time legendary rock bands. I'm not faulting them. This album's as great as it gets. Disraeli Gears, they have a tremendous amount of great records. And they were only together for like 3 years, I think 66 to 68 or something like that. So here's a great collection of Cream. The first stuff is in the studio, which is the stuff that I prefer more. The songs are tight. Live, they could just go on and on and on and on, which on this gold collection, just two, you get those extended live stuff, which if you really go for that, if you're in the mood, is great. Clapton actually left Cream because of the excessive jamming. There's a fine line, even he said, between jamming on and eventually becomes musical masturbation. But I don't really consider Cream a supergroup because Clapton was a superstar even then. He left the Yardbirds and John Mayall to do Cream. But the other guys, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker, came from the Grand Bond organization, which was not a huge band. They were a pub band over in England, influential, but certainly didn't sell any records, and unknown pretty much in the United States. So I think calling Cream a supergroup is a stretch, even though all three guys are superstars. Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce really weren't superstars at the time. Of course, Clapton reformed them and went on tour, and released that. But the supergroup for Clapton was when he left Cream and teamed up with Steve Winwood, who was leaving Traffic, and they formed Blind Faith. And this is a classic album. This is the deluxe edition, 2 CD set. This album is amazing. And of course, what you got? You got Clapton and Ginger Baker and Steve Winwood. Those are the three main guys. Rick Gretsch is also in there from Family. But you can't, Had to Cry Today, Can't Find My Way Home, Presence of the Lord, Sea of Joy, unbelievable stuff. This is a really good collection right there. They only lasted one album. That was it. Just personalities just couldn't jive. So that was in 69. So Cream was 66 to 68. Clapton leaves, forms Blind Faith, brings in Ginger Baker with Steve Winwood, does Blind Faith for one album. Of course, what Clapton had been doing over the last couple decades, so he reformed Cream and they toured it, and he basically reformed Blind Faith. He just didn't call it that. And Clapton and Winwood went on tour, and here's an album called Live at Madison Square Garden. But yeah, basically that is Clapton reforming Blind Faith, so he's big on that. Some people are going to say Derek and the Dominoes is a supergroup. It's not. Derek and the Dominoes is a Clapton solo album, and Duane Allman he brought in, and Jim Gordon, but, Bobby Whitlock. But Duane Allman was not leaving the Allman Brothers. It was a one-shotter. They did go on tour, Derek and the Dominoes, live at the Fillmore, but, Duane Allman is not there. So I don't consider Derek and the Dominoes a supergroup. It's just that Clapton wanted to go relatively unknown. And it worked because Derek and the Dominoes, a lot of people don't remember, was a failure as an album. It bombed. But certainly one of the greatest albums of all time. Let's keep going as we start getting into some of my favorites. Well, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, there's your ultimate progressive rock supergroup. These three guys, this was their debut album. Well, of course, Keith Emerson was from The Nice. Greg Lake was from King Crimson. And Carl Palmer, the hell was he from? Atomic Rooster? So this is their first album, and they took off even from the get-go. Great debut album. Monstrous progressive band. Not always an easy listen, but, here's their great triple live record on 2 CDs. Welcome back, my friends. The show that never ends. Ladies and gentlemen, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. This is a classic live album. I actually prefer this one, which is Works Live. I actually saw that tour, and this has an orchestra, and this is unbelievable. I'll still remember C'est La Vie. I died and went to heaven when they played that one live. Unbelievable. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, the ultimate probably progressive rock supergroup for sure. Let's keep going. We got 3 left. I'm going to go next up would be Asia. And you're going to be like, really? Yeah. I mean, Asia to me is a great, great supergroup that doesn't get anywhere near the respect that they deserve. What they pulled off was incredible in my mind and really not easy to do. Progressive rock, that's commercial. Songs are relatively short, but it's still highly progressive. And they're great songs. This first Asia album still sounds great. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Each song is great. And it's progressive. This is not easy stuff to play. All the songs have progressive edges to them, and it's just one great song after the other. And what are you talking about? You're talking about Carl Palmer, of course, after EOP. And you got Steve Howe after Yes, great Steve Howe guitar work. John Wetton, who I love and is a great musician from Roxy Music and King Crimson and Uriah Heep and Wishbone Ash he even played in. And Jeffrey Downs from the Buggles and even Yes. I mean, this is a supergroup, and it doesn't get much better than this debut album. It still sounds great. Everybody shits all over their second album, which is this one called Alpha. I thought it was pretty good. There were no way were they going to be able to compete with that first album, but it's still a lot of really good tracks on here. And, does it got ballads on there like The Smile Has Left Your Eyes? Yeah, but it's a great fucking song. They kept going, and then they reformed, and I've seen them a couple of times. When they reformed, this is a beautiful collection called 30, and this was a new album. When they reformed, they were still putting out great material. Really good stuff. Here's another one called Omega. Another really strong record featuring the original guys. And here's one called Phoenix. Also featuring the original guys. All of these are chock full with a lot of really good songs. No beating that first album. And no mistake, it is not easy to pull off writing really good commercial type songs that have hooks. If it was easy to do it, everybody would do it. It's not easy to do it. Ask UK. But at the same time, have that progressive edge. And they pulled it off, and I don't think Asia gets near the recognition they should, my opinion. And they were really good live. Next up, number 2 of all time, I would actually go with Bad Company. Bad Company, of course, another supergroup. You got Paul Rodgers, one of the greatest rock and roll vocalists of all time from Free. Great band in their own right. You got Simon Kirke. You got guys from Mata Hoople, King Crimson. This is and the first album. You got Boz Burrell, who was in Crimson at one point, Mick Ralphs, Mata Hoople, Simon Kirke on drums, and Paul Rodgers. I mean, this first album is as good as it gets. I mean, this is a perfect album. Just amazing. And some of these tracks actually were left over from Mata Hoople. So this is a great first album. Their second album is just as good. Straight Shooter. Another great album. Shooting Star, Feel Like Making Love, Good Lovin' Gone Bad, Wildfire Woman. It's really great stuff. Their latter albums get spotty. All their albums have some really great tracks on it, but the latter ones get spotty. You want to check out, this is a great anthology of the original Bad Company, and it even tacked on some new tracks at the end. This is, some hidden tracks. Silver, Blue, and Gold. Oh my God, what an amazing track that is. Bad Company would be my second favorite of all time, supergroups. They transformed Supergroup, became one of the biggest bands of the 70s. They even had their own plane, and deserved it. Really, really good band for a long time. Which leaves number 1 supergroup of all time. Yeah, I don't think anybody would deny it. I just did a video with David Crosby. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. The definition, in my opinion, of a supergroup. What do you got? You got David Crosby from the Byrds. You got Stephen Stills, Buffalo Springfield, Graham Nash from the Hollies, and they pulled it together, and this debut album is one of the greatest albums of all time. This album alone would seal their legacy, but no, they bring in Neil Young for their second album, Deja Vu, and possibly even better. Neil Young giving them a lot more balls, I think, to a certain extent. Amazing album. And even their double live record back in the day, Four-Way Street, really captures everything about them. Tons of acoustic stuff and some blitz-taking live stuff and jamming. It's all on Four-Way Street. Of course, Stills and Nash and Young. I think the greatest supergroup of all time. So there you go. I know this ran about 25 minutes, but, pretty comprehensive. My 15 favorite supergroups of all time. And these were bands. I'm not talking about things like Super Heavy, which wouldn't have made the list anyway. This is like a one-off. When Mick Jagger did this with Joss Stone and Dave Stewart, really not a band, in my opinion. Not a very good album anyway. And some of the latter-day ones, it still goes on. Velvet Revolver, and Them Crooked Vultures is that one. Temple of the Dog, Audio Slave. I don't have those albums, so I only talk about stuff that I really know and stuff that I own. So that's a difference with my channel than maybe others that just pop things up. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new to my channel, please hit subscribe and please hit like and check out my other videos. And please send your comments. What did I miss? Who are your favorite supergroups of all time? You know, who do you think is great that I didn't cover? Or maybe you hate Asia. I don't know. Let me know. But thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Stay safe. Stay healthy out there. Keep rocking. And the Alan Rosenberg Show, we will see you on the next video. Have a great night.